When I was a child, I remember the first time I became truly cognizant of the news, and this was a long time ago, many moons ago, and it was the event we call the Iran-Contra scandal or affair. And for those who don't know, this was an attempt on the part of the United States to sell arms and munitions to the Islamic Republic of Iran, which at the time was subject to an arms embargo in an effort to arm so-called Contras in Central America, specifically in Nicaragua, to fight against Marxist governments. And I only had a vague notion of it. Of course, I read up on it later, many years later, in greater detail. But I remember people talking about it, and I remember seeing it occasionally in news headlines and sometimes being mentioned on the news, on television. And this was the first instance of what I might refer to as true awareness with respect to the news and current affairs at the time. And then we can fast forward to the LA riots that were sparked off by this incident with Rodney King in 1991. And I was much older at the time, and so I had a much greater sense of what was happening, the news reporting on television, et cetera, in the newspapers. It was a big deal. And I mention these two events not because I think they're astonishingly interesting or unique, but rather because they took place at a time before the internet, before social media. And when I think about them, to the best of my recollection, people weren't losing their minds over this stuff. They weren't going crazy. Sure, people would occasionally talk about it. I'd overhear it. There was reporting on television, and you could read things in the newspaper. But by and large, people's lives were not ruled over and guided by current events that they happened to catch wind of. But what would have happened if the Iran-Contra affair / scandal had taken place in the year 2020 or 2019 or 2021, or likewise the thing that happened with Rodney King? Well, the Rodney King thing we can imagine quite well. I think in any event that there would be a lot of online debate. There would be a constant kerfuffle about all of these things. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the flawed nature of how social media and internet has made us overly focus on the quote-unquote big picture. And this hyper-focus on the big picture is ruining our lives at the individual level. Now, I do think the big picture is occasionally important. It's important to understand the world as best as you can and get a sense of what's going on. But I have borne witness to individuals and have known individuals reasonably well who've allowed the big picture, current events, the state of the world, to overwhelm them to such a degree that they become miserable as a result, that they lose any sense of potential for the future, of something they might do in order to escape, as it were, in order to abscond. That's the issue, I think, that many of us are facing these days. We are living, in a sense, parasocially to the current events of the world and to general cultural and societal trends. We observe things, and many of us don't like what's going on. I'm one of these people. There are many things I don't like in the current cultural zeitgeist. But it is what it is. And we have to think about the futility of getting lost in this big picture thinking, because it goes well beyond current events. Human beings aren't very good at the big picture stuff. And we can observe this by observing what happens once we get social media in our lives. And once that technology fundamentally changes the whole game, we tend to localize these things. So we can observe that many individuals will hear about some news event or some trend or whatever. The whole Trump derangement syndrome was a result of this. And they personalize it in their everyday experience, in their interactions with people, how they deal with people in a very, very, very normal way, in a way it was never meant to be, which is to say politics, for example, was never as polarizing as it's become. This is all thanks to the internet, all thanks to social media. We would be better off without it, I would argue. That is the subject of a separate video, potentially. However, it is possible to lean back and realize that, yes, these people exist, and yes, there are people that are allowing their personal lives to be dominated by a kind of big picture thinking, largely influenced by social media and the internet. But humans are bad at big picture stuff because we're primarily focused on our own lives. Given sufficient time, it's all over anyway. Humanity's not going to make it. No one is going to make it. The earth will be lost. The universe will be lost. But that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter in the moment. And so what I'm talking about is the possibility to abscond from it all, to leave it behind. So imagine maybe that you're getting really, really bogged down in all the things happening in the world. And even in your daily life, you're getting bogged down by the things you can observe. Because you're seeing the things happening in your daily life correlate with the things that are happening in the outside world. Well, there's a possibility of escape. Maybe you should try to move if possible. It's not going to be easy, but you could try to do it. People, and I've talked about this before, are so hooked on the goings-on of the external world outside of themselves that they don't even know themselves particularly well. They don't know their interests. They don't know what they want. All they know is the news cycle or whatever cultural movement is afoot at a given moment. It's all they know. And that is the ruling force in their lives. Think about all the bread tubers and the people who follow them, their acolytes. Think about all the silly debates that go on. Think about all the forums and the Reddits and the Discord servers. All these things are discussed ad nauseum. Think about it. It is, for lack of a better word, toxic. But it is possible to put it down and not pay attention. Look, I'm as interested in the external world as anybody else. I talk about it somewhat frequently on the channel. But at the end of the day, I'm much more animated by my own personal interests, the kind of things that stimulate me, the kinds of things that interest me to the point where I pursue them not for anybody else's sake, but only for my own. I don't even necessarily have people I can share these interests with, but nonetheless, I pursue them. And the thing that's been lost in the lives of so many people has been that opportunity of self-discovery. Because if all that happens is a constant barrage and inundation of news and current events, when you allow yourself to get sucked into that, then what remains? So yes, there's a big picture, but there's also a little picture. And I would argue that the little big picture is your own life. These things do affect us. There are massive cultural changes afoot, even political changes, and they all have an effect on us. But they don't necessarily affect our ability to react in a way such that that reaction would benefit us as individuals, which is to say, to affect changes in our own lives. Sometimes they can, but even if they do affect you directly, you can still look for a way out. It is possible. So I think it's time for all of us to sit back, relax, take a deep breath, and try to get back to the basics of the little big picture of your own life. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe if you've not yet done so, share the video, hit the bell icon to be informed of forthcoming videos. As always, if I'm still alive, I will check you out later. May the gods watch over you. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.